Good morning, everybody. February 15th, 2018. RB Pete, aka Peter Price here. I'm here with Toby Dawson. Oh, buenos dias, senor.
Hi. Was ist das?
I'm so grateful to have a moment of your time. Talk about what's happening in your world. Best meta, well played. I know that there's been some changes within kind of the professional scene with Dota 2 casting, and people are wondering. There is a rare occurrence where a mass exodus appears to be happening from the casting table itself. And I guess we'll get right into it. What are your thoughts, man? What is this? Are they following you in your footsteps and saying, "Hey, like these other projects seem so much more promising, and I don't have to exert so much time and energy"? You know, what's the feeling of the climate here?
I don't think following in my footsteps is the right way to say that.
You're such a trendsetter, Toby.
I'm definitely not one of those. So for me, it's very simple. Like if you look at the Melini case, Melini made it very clear that he's looking at the future and stability in life, what becomes important, what's priorities, and casting does make it very difficult to have like the priorities that he holds true or holds as important. It makes it very hard to have those things like a wife, a kid, even a pet. Like I've always wanted to have a cat for the last 6 years, and I just know I never can do it because it's just cruel to the animal because I'm away so much. So it's definitely a lifestyle which you probably only want to lead for a short period of time, and then you need to find a way to regulate it once you reach the tier 1 level. And that's something which when it looks like Melini doesn't want to do. LD was able to do that for a while. It helped the fact that his business was in the SWOT, so it wouldn't be difficult for him just to come in and cast and just do it every now and then. But moderation is everything, right? And his company is just, it's growing massively. So him taking more time out to ensure that his company remains stable and growing, yeah, you can 100% understand that as well. But it's the natural progression, right? Like some people could be casters forever. Some people could be casters for a short period of time. Everyone wants something that will challenge them in their life. And priorities in life always change too. So you just try and find a way to balance all this out. For me, like I still get a huge high from casting, so I have no desire to ever remove this from my life. I definitely have a desire. Like in 2018, I'll be casting PUBG. In fact, very soon I'll be casting PUBG. But I don't plan to move away from Dota 2 casting. But I've already started to regulate a very long time ago back at JD when I was casting basically grind matches. So it was like 8 to 9 hours every single day, 5 days, like 5 to 7 days a week. Like it's too much. It's too much. You lose the love for what you're doing. You lose the uniqueness of what you do, and you don't get appreciated by the community for the hard work you do. So it's like, well, what the hell is the point? And it's not even the argument of, hey, everyone, like you get paid to do what you do. It's like, yeah, but we don't get paid that much. So passion is still a very large driving force, and you need to make sure your passion remains alive. For these guys moving on, it's understandable. It's a big blow to Dota 2, but it is what it is, and hopefully people understand that they shouldn't take their casters for granted.
Absolutely. Their talent, for sure, is not going to disappear. They're going to continue to put effort into a scene that's certainly in no shape or form going away. I mean, we're nowhere near the peak of what the esports world is going to be like for North America, for the world. And I still feel like, you know, there's a lot that all of this talent is still going to bring to the table. And I thoroughly love the idea of people improving their quality of life and still being in love with what this esports world can bring. Having to go through the grind and so much energy being poured in, and if it starts to feel too much like work and not fun anymore, I feel like that's also going to push people away. So, I mean, yeah, thanks for your insights. I do have a question. We did put some questions out to the Texas Dota 2 community, and I've got one from here, Joseph Flip, and so we might change gears a little bit here. The Tier 2 scene seems the most volatile, while many Tier 1 teams seem to have settled into their core rosters. What's the best way to encourage teams to stick together the way we saw AdFinem Mousesports do for so long rather than just shuffle constantly?
Well, it's a different way of approaching things, right? Like Alliance tried to do this as well, where it's like we play as a family, we play as friends, and this is the reason why we're together. Virtus Pro was together for a very long time for exactly the same reason. While they may have pissed off every other group because they took all the greatest players, they played as friends until most recently when Lil left them. But this is what the teams try to do, and it's not. I think there's also a lot more pressure on teams that lose, and this forces either conflict inside the team, or it forces like maybe budget to disappear because sponsors don't want to be involved anymore. The team management puts pressure on them, or whatever the influence is. But tier 2 teams will never win all the time. Like that's the nature of being a tier 2 team. So how do you stick together like through that? Like you have to be friends, you have to be locked in, and you have to trust each other to a point where you don't flame the shit out of your friend just because you're like, man, we lost this game because of you, and then all of a sudden you know who the team is going to be splitting up when you say something like this. So the tier 2 teams have become a lot more volatile. I think it's one of the very few advantages of the current system that's running Dota 2 is the fact that there's so many qualifiers for so many regions for so many teams. So there's always more opportunities for teams in all regions to actually qualify and get to these LAN events and potentially compete. So there's more reason to stick together. I know it was one of the primary reasons I'm sure that Valve did that change was to ensure that we wouldn't have what we had about a year and a half ago when we're like, okay, who's being invited to the South American qualifiers? 2 teams, because they're the only ones who actually stuck together long enough to do it or didn't get banned. So everyone else came through open qualifiers and ended up being just a complete shit show. And this is that point when you look at your scene and you go, okay, yeah, the tier 2 scene definitely is struggling for teams. Even the tier 1 team is struggling for teams in certain regions. So how do you accommodate that? And having mass qualifiers all year round was at least a way that Valve tried to stop it. So, yeah.
Now, have you seen
the too long didn't read? Get involved in the qualifiers and actually play with people you like.
Yeah, well, that's good insight. How do you feel about Valve doing this matching for minors and majors? Have you seen it have any improvement on the overall competitive circuits, or is there's still a struggle for some of the communities to try to find matching support? And for those of you who aren't aware, Valve is doing like 150,000 matching for like minors, and then of course scales up.
Valve put all the money into the prize pool, and in a way that's nice because it means there's a lot more money that floods around the scene throughout the year and does get distributed a little bit better than it did in just by having like 2-3 majors throughout the year and then the international. Because that's what we're all like. The big worry was always about. Like, if you didn't compete and didn't get a good position at the international, well, you're kind of screwed. But if you do, congratulations, you're set for like the next 2 years of your Dota play. So this is, yeah. I personally hate the system, and I think it's because again, the only people who are benefiting from this is the players in the competitive scene, and that only exists because of the viewers. Like, how many players do you have come out there and teams come out there and say, we're only where we are because of your support. We're only an esport because you watch. Because without the viewers, you don't have shit. So
that's a good point.
It's that thing of like, yeah, you can keep building up the competitive scene as much as you want. You can give them all the stability you want, but it doesn't help. Like, even when there's so many games going on, that when a team competes, you don't even see the game anymore. Like, there's so many qualifiers for so many events, and these games just go completely unheard of, unmissed. Like, and they could have great plays. Like, it could be one of those games where all of a sudden I've become a huge fan of this team, and it can appear on the front page of Reddit. But like, how many people sit there and they look up and they go, "Oh man, this game was really epic." I can't be bothered to watch it.
Right.
I can't. Like, I've already watched like 10 games this week. I don't want to watch an 11th. No matter how epic it is, it just feels like too much of a chore to actually watch it to keep up. And this is where your viewership starts like ticking down because you've burnt out your audience, you've burnt out your community, and now things don't mean as much because they're being desensitized.
This may be a good segue into Best Meta. Give us some insight into kind of how this organization came together. Maybe some key people that you think were kind of the think tank behind what this was offering.
Well, it's a simple idea by Amy Yu, my lovely girlfriend, and this guy called Dennis, who is a VC. and they basically just talked about like cool things that they can do with blockchain and inside the esports and gaming world. And quite simple, the concept said, how do we, because it's the theory of like blockchain, right? Like you take the power away from the establishment, and you give it back to the people. And like this was pretty much along the same lines, right? So it's like, okay, so how do you give power to the people? Well, money is normally power. So, okay, then you need to have support. Support is power. It's all about who you know and how people can actually find you. Okay, so we make an online catalog which has all these talents listed. We have their projects listed as well. Sponsors can come on board and just say, okay, I want to be involved in this, 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 and this. Community can come on board and say, I want to be involved in this, 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 and this. So you basically just make a great connection platform which combines funding and support. And this is kind of where it all just came to be. It's like we understand that the content creators out there are the ones who move everything forward, and the ones who have really creative content are the ones that always look better and perform better when it comes to their community strength compared to those who just do cookie cutter stuff. So yeah, we made a platform for, or we're currently trying to make a platform for people who just are creative, who do want to expand, who do want to create really cool things, but they just don't have the means or the connections to do so.
Yeah, this is going to open up some unique opportunities. I feel like in the content creation world, reputation currency is almost everything. And like, I love the idea how the merit of your work is now starting to open up pathways for success, and that if you do get spotted by the right individuals or a right community, you will get adequate support. So I recommend everybody to rush over and go check out Best Meta. What's the timeline for the development of this? Is this still kind of the introductory phase where you just kind of like letting the community kind of know that this is in development, or do you feel like you guys have a launch date where you're ready to open it up and open the floodgates and let everybody jump in and start registering on the website?
Well, everyone can register and try and get involved now because it's an ICO, so we're raising the capital in order to actually make this happen. Going into a talent industry is not a cheap thing to do. Building the platform is potentially the cheaper thing to do, but we still will take time to do this correctly because we want to make sure it's very watertight. So we actually already opened up our private pre-sale. So people can already get involved now if they want to invest. That went live yesterday, and will be live for another 27 days. On the 15th of March is the public pre-sale. Everyone can get involved then as well. But yeah, if you just hit to contact us for the private pre-sale, there's already a whole bunch of things that you can get involved in. But as far as the platform launch, we're looking to have it all up by, I believe it is December. At the latest, alpha testing is meant to be in Q3, so the full platform should be live in Q4, is the current plan. And once that happens, then yeah, everyone is open to jump on and put their product out there, try and get some attention, and then yeah, we'll have everything working by the end of the year.
And the pieces shall come together. So yeah, big congrats to you and your team for putting that together. I love the concept. I love the introduction of, you know, trying to use some similarities there with blockchain to try to offer solutions for the esports community, and clearly funding for certain projects is a pain point that you know, many folks in the entrepreneurial world that have a love for esports have always been working to try to solve. So congratulations to that on you. So I've got another question I'm going to pull from the community. Jonathan Maples had a question about YouTubers. Why aren't YouTubers invited to the international and given more of a spotlight?
It's kind of funny, right? Because you look at the content creators in Dota, and so many of them are professional players. Like they're just streamers. Like Dota, I think, is actually one of the laziest communities out there when it comes to content creators. But you look at something else, like,
so because it's so time consuming. I feel like the games are so long, and you know, it's anyway. Please continue.
It's not just time consuming. It's the fact that you get normally shut down when you create anything more than a highlight video which says how great a player is. Like Purge and Malini were probably the only ones that really were able to create content which was widely accepted by both the professional as well as the amateur community. And that's kind of it. So, like, when you say, like, hey, why isn't a YouTuber invited to this? It's like, well, what have they done to be invited to the international? Like, it's
There you go.
you haven't done anything. So don't expect someone just to give you a free ticket for this. Like, if you want to come to the international and make content, that's up to you, and you can definitely do that. And if you, like, I know a lot of groups who have contacted Valve, and they may not be the biggest out there, but they said, yeah, I want to make content and upload it onto YouTube. Great, Valve will help you. Like, they'll give you access, or they'll let you know exactly what you have available, and you can go from there. But you look at other communities which have a lot stronger YouTube creators. Like, I think CS has a lot of them. I think the bigger one, and that's just because I believe Bluehole worked out very early on where the power lies to gain attention, and of course it's the content creators. It's like personally, I've applied for partnership over for PUBG many times, saying I want to create content, but I'm not big enough for them. And I'm like, so when the Tier 1 cars from one scene can't even like get access to use custom games or to like use a spectator mode inside of a game, like,
can you speak Mandarin?
If
so,
the mindset that they have. But they work with so many streamers. They encourage people to do YouTube content. Like, to keep your partnership, you have to create like a specific amount of pieces on your YouTube channel every single month. You just stream a certain amount every single month, and they actually vet them and remove your partnership if you don't do it. So they're all about, like, we want our game in as many people's hands as possible. So pump it out, get it out there, more streaming, more content, and everyone continue to talk about our game. So it's like, it's two very different approaches. So yeah, people won't get invited to the international because they don't do anything. And in other scenes, they're understanding that content creators are definitely the strength of this industry, and they do everything to inspire these content creators to make stuff about their game.
Excellent. Well, thank you for answering that. To follow up with next topic, well played, a new game show, a new form of entertainment online where you get to bring in these personalities and they're kind of battling it off 3-on-3. You finished your pilot season, did 4 episodes. They're all available online if anybody wants to go check them out. Initial thoughts when you were approached, or was this, who was behind the ideation for this concept?
It kind of developed a little bit inside the internal team. So, like, I kind of always watch UK panel shows, like, so much.
Oh, yes.
I always wondered, like, what do we like to do something like that? And Amy, our noble leader, was like, you should do this or you should do that. And we were kind of like I visited Jinx TV one night, like, man, like, if they just changed up their studio a little bit and they did this or did that, like, it'd be so much better. It's like, well, why don't you go and do that? And it's like the exact best meta approach, right? Like you have an idea. Why don't you actually do it? Why don't you get off your ass and actually do something about it? Do I have the support? Do I have the finances? Okay, let's use this as a great example. This is exactly what you need. You need the support. Okay, we hook you up with people who can support you. Like, you need this, you need that, you need that. Okay, we'll talk to people. Actually try and make it happen, and don't just sit there saying, man, it'd be really good if someone would create this. And that's how Well Played was born. Obviously, it was very rough. I think there was a lot of things that I definitely learned. We did all the filming in one day, so it was difficult, like impossible to actually go back and say, well, we should have changed this or done this differently.
Okay.
I haven't done a lot of hosting before, so for me, like, I learned a lot more about how to potentially guide the dynamic of a panel show like that, because it was scary as fuck.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah.
And it didn't help too, like even things like vetting our questions and answers. Like, there were some errors in what we did, and Pyrion was nice enough to call us out on some of them.
Of course,
and rightly so. So actually having things like a research team and not just 2 guys who are going through a doc saying, I'm fairly certain this is right because I found it on the internet. Like these are things which you realize, like, they're really important. Even the way you structure the game, structure the show, like, many things can be done differently, and that's what I'm hoping I can do in season 1 if I can get that off the ground too. But a pilot is a pilot, right? Like, we put it out there. This is the base concept. A lot of shows which I watched in season 1 were very raw, and by season 2, season 3, there's like, oh my god, these things are so nicely polished and really creative. And I think it's a very similar kind of progression with what we did. So we had a couple of talents who definitely took one for the team by doing the pilot shows, and I think with what we do have, we can encourage more talents to actually be involved in this because they understand the concept more. So getting like celebrities from other areas who are not just people who are my friends, because that's kind of like how we got the initial group, was me asking favors of people directly. But now we can actually send this out and say, hey, do you actually want to be on this? And we can motivate the people's communities to encourage their talents to be on things like this. Yeah,
Speaking of inviting unique personalities, I don't know if you remember DreamHack Atlanta when they had Dream League and they made this it was hilarious panel introduction with Waka Flocka when he came in and started talking with the Dota 2 panelists. And, of course, there's this education that's happening about the game. And, of course, Waka Flocka, being a giant that he is, and giving his insights into the game, it can be cringeworthy for some people, but I felt it was so endearing to have these people coming from, different industries that are also interested in the gaming world. And you see that there's an instant connection. You'd see that they would all sit down and they would play together, regardless of, whatever, I guess preferences they had on whatever game that they wanted to play, but they came together for the sake of play. Dr. Disrespect going out to DreamHack Winner, going overseas there, showing up again on another Dream League panel. Any instances like that where you think, would be a benefit to what it is that we are doing within the esports world to try to bring in these other personalities that are, they're big influencers. And I know there's a lot of companies that rely on influencers to help get the word out, but I still feel like that is good entertainment because those cringeworthy moments tend to, give us a laugh. It gives us a chuckle.
I don't really feel a lot of cringe unless it's just done really badly.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some influencers that I really wish to jump up there and speak more. I think there's a lot of them who already do it. I think Day 9 was actually the first one to really pioneer the real influence of someone who was on camera. I think for me, he was one of the first influencers in the way talent actually develop in the world of esports. So for me, I love it when people like that talk. I feel like it's a double-edged sword, however. You can say, hey, come up here and talk for a while, go on and say this, go and talk about, the development of esports, and you realize you're talking to someone who got popular from just making videos in their basement, and they've only been popular for the last 6 months, and then you're, saying, hey, come on, talk about our entire scene. They're going to try and say something of what they've learned, but there's not a lot of depth to it, so you... vetting of people is very important when you do panels like that. So you say, man, this guy is huge. Well, actually, technically, is he? What has this guy got to his name that makes me want to actually respect what he says? And am I just giving a platform for misinformation to be spread? Am I Fox News now? What's going on? So this is something which I think is really good when to build up leaders in the esports world, but at the same time, we want people who are actually experienced and understand what they're talking about to lead us, and not the misinformation and people who are one-hit wonders just trying to prove that they know more than they actually know. This is that same pool conversation about who is really an esport consultant. I've been working in esports. I started as a player back in 2001. And I started running competitions and managing clans back in 2003. Started as a commentator properly in 2006 to 2007, and I still don't feel that I know enough to be a full-on consultant. Yeah. I feel like there's so much more to learn, and when someone like myself sits there and says, I've been in the industry for this long, and then you'll have someone who's been up there for 3-4 years. It's yeah, man, I was here during the boom of esports. No, if you were here with the boom of esports, you would have been back when the financial depression actually hit the world, because that was the first boom of esports that shattered the budget, and then for 3 years we limped on trying to make the best out of what we had. It was one of the reasons why World Cyber Games started to collapse as well. It was because of this period of time. But these guys will be oh man, I don't even know what WCG even was, and you're okay. Next thing you'd be saying is I never even heard of ESWC. It's just well done, man. You definitely understand what you're talking about. So yeah, there's a lot of people out there who I think are fakers in this industry, and as long as the people who are up there talking during panels are like knowledgeable people who express the correct like educated concepts,
Right.
then I'm all for that stuff.
So good takeaway is to do your homework, vet out the people, make sure that there's some quality and folks that have the merit to be speaking on the particular topics that, you know, are
Exactly.
going to be in whatever platform that seems to be going on at the time.
There was actually a conference in actually it was happening this week in France or in Cannes, and it was called The Bar. And it basically had esports professionals from all over the world. And when I say that, like I'm meaning that. Like you had Ralph Reichart, the guy who basically founded ESL. There you had Stuart, who was a commentator, now basically runs like Twitch America. Like he was there as well. Like there's like these type of people who have been part of the development of the world and currently sit in positions of power in the world. These are the people you want to listen to because they're the ones who currently dictate the future of esports. And I'm not saying like the developers in a way also do control this, but you can't prepare yourself for what a developer does because the developer is not educated in this world. And if they try and internalize things, then good luck. You can't predict this until you actually see what they do, and then you can sort of work out from at least what they publicly say, their mindset, and then predict what will happen. But yeah.
All right.
That's a whole different kettle of fish of like who really controls esports.
Right, yes. Like there's an Illuminati of esports out there, like
It's
pulling
not
strings.
even, it's not even Illuminati because that would actually require organization and
Yeah.
everyone to be together. Like the Illuminati, like for a while you could say it was Blizzard, but then it was Riot, right? Like Riot and Blizzard basically put both of their games under their own tents and said, you know what, we don't need to actually work with
That's
anybody
right,
else.
that's
We
right.
will sort of help other people who want to do stuff in our game, but what we're really looking for is the big storyline, and that's what we're going to hold. So that's what Overwatch League is. That's what the LCS is. Like Dota and CS run by a group who's like, man, we want to give power back to everybody else. And the International is still like it's a one-off event, but it's basically Valve's LCS and Overwatch League. It just doesn't continue beyond the span of 2 to 3 weeks. So the rest of the time it's just like a free-for-all for everybody else, and there's no one storyline that everyone can follow.
Yeah,
So,
that was always one frustrating aspect for down in Texas. We're trying to put together any Overwatch or any, you know, like League of Legends events, and you can't do it once you reach a certain amount of prize pool. So anything beyond $10,000, like Blizzard wants a hand in it, right? They want their rights. You know, they want to flex their muscle. They want to make sure that the production. I'm sure that it's more about the quality of it, and they want everything that's happening right to be done appropriately, and they want to make sure people are paid, and they don't want, you know, any mishandling to be done underneath, you know, their umbrella. And so I can understand from their aspect, and then on the other, you know, that I hate the idea of stifling any community efforts to try to put together, you know, these types of events. And so I
you
hope
hate
over time.
stifling creativity,
Exactly,
like that.
yeah.
And but then you have like, so it's two sides of the coin, right? Like you have Valve who are like, man, we want to give power to absolutely everybody out there. That's why anything which is inside of our game belongs to everybody, and that's why ESL was not allowed to DMCA during Genting. That was the most recent scandal thing with the Facebook
that's
streaming.
right.
And the reason why is because Valve is just like, we want our community to continue to make content. But the problem is, for an industry to build on that type of framework, you're going to fall apart. Like it's like trying to build a house on the edge of a beach on loose sand. Like it's going to collapse. There's just no doubt about it. You have no foundation to work from. But then you have the other ones where the foundation's pretty set and you can't even get in the door. So, and that's the Riot and potentially like Overwatch League Blizzard models. And maybe one day these guys will find a nice common ground between like to allow creativity, and to feel the security of what they own, because what they do, like you own the game as a developer. So like it's that entitlement, right? Like it's that freedom. Like why should everyone be free to make whatever content they want from what I built, from my game? Like why should this happen? And it's a really decent question for a developer. Why should they give away power which they currently own? And like there's very few reasons to do it, because a lot of third parties like a developer would just come in and say, well, these guys are just making money for themselves. They're using our community to make money for themselves. I just saw this one CEO of a company driving around in a Ferrari. Okay, well, now I'm just pissed. Because like that Ferrari could have easily funded another tournament. So why are they hoarding this money?
Seems a bit excessive, mate.
Yeah,
Lamborghini at least.
Oh, of course.
Just kidding.
I'm a Ferrari boy. But it's just one of those questions. Like, it can just be the mentality, and it may not be in perfect perspective. But it's still a thought to think about, where one side is never 100% right. We're not Sith. We don't deal in absolutes. Everyone kind of has a little bit of a way to go, and everyone has to see the advantages of working with each other in order to do, in order to create a gaming industry. Then again, the gaming industry is already created. To create a competitive industry, I think is the best way of putting that.
So this is going to be the final question, and then we'll do a little quick wrap up. Alberto has a question saying, "What does it feel like to be one of the last few iconic Sentinels of the old guard, to still be doing what you are known for?"
I don't know. Am I that old? It definitely feels weird. Like, you ask yourself that question too once you see LD and Merlini move on. It's like, well, should I be doing the same thing? And in a lot of ways, I've tried to in the past as well. Like, I've tried to get more and more involved in management. But I think I'm kind of one of the lucky few that have a bit of a, like, when it comes to casting, like, I just have this high when I do it that I don't think I ever want to give up. So I will always find a way to make that part of my life.
So does your heart rate go up more when you're casting, or when you're playing around a PUBG and you're pinned down in a position and you're surrounded? Because I feel like, man, I have to take a break sometimes from PUBG because my heart rate just gets so high.
It's about the same. It's about the same, actually.
It's so stressful. Jesus.
I find it exhilarating. I find my hands shake a lot when I play PUBG for that kind of thing. But I love that intensity. Like, I don't think anyone's just like I'm a gaming adrenaline junkie almost. And that's the coolest thing. That was like when you have a portal where you can express that intensity, and that's why that's where casting is just that perfect thing. Like, I don't just have to sit there internalizing it. I can actually speak it.
I'm personally waiting for a research team to come forward and do biometrics on some of these players, and to, get the BPMs on their heart rate, right? And get an idea of the rapid eye movement, and figuring out, like, all these micro movements that are happening rapidly.
All that shit exists already, man.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
you got eye trackers. Hey, even at the International One, we had heartbeat sensors. If you ever look back at the old footage of the International One, and you see these, like, white curly cables onto the players' hands, they had heart rate monitors which would go directly into the game. Unfortunately, the system didn't really work that well, so it was never really showcased anywhere. But Fear was flatlining the entire time he was playing.
Holy goodness!
But this is it exists out there. But players also calmed themselves down. They push themselves not to get
zen-like state,
intense about things, because they need to be 100% focused and not having emotions cloud their judgment. So yeah.
Well, thank you. That's all the time we have for today, TobiWan Dawson. I really appreciate you sharing some of your insights. Congratulations on all your latest achievements and milestones, and we really look forward to seeing more come from your direction. If you have any particular places where you feel like for people to follow you on social media, go ahead and let us know where that is.
My social media is pretty simple. It's TobiWan Dota on both Twitter and Facebook. I've also got a YouTube channel, which I'm trying to get a little bit more momentum on. So youtube.com/TobiWan. And yeah, pretty much, if you follow those three things, you'll probably find exactly what I'm doing everywhere, because I share it all the time.
All right, well, thank you, friend, and cheers. Best of luck to everything that you do, and we will be watching.
All right, thanks, babe.
Yeah.